Even though we think of the Roman Republic as one of the founders of modern Western politics, it took both Machiavelli and Shakespeare to revive widespread interest in this critical time of Roman history. The Romans remain one of the most influential ancient powers today. Almost everyone has heard of the emperor's powers or the empire's expansion. Most people have visions of gladiators, legions, and conquests, and a few might even think back on the disaster of Pompeii. While all of these were part of Roman history, the Roman Republic was essential to establishing Rome as the greatest Mediterranean power during its time in history. An emperor did not rule the Republic. Instead, the Senate ran it, so many politicians served the Roman people and helped shape it into one of the leading ancient cultures. Although we could discuss many different political leaders from this time, here are 5 of the greatest Roman politicians from the Roman Republic. Number 1. Cicero. While he might not be as well known as some of the later emperors, Cicero is one of the most famous Romans ever. He is mostly known for his oration skills, philosophy, and his work on rhetoric. However, Cicero was also a powerful politician who lived from 106 to 43 BCE. In his day, he became famous for opposing Lucius Sergius Catilina, a noble who planned to burn down the Senate and take all of the elected officials' wealth to pay off the populace's debts. Catilina was particularly interested in paying off everyone's debts because he was nearing bankruptcy himself. He was from one of the oldest families in Rome. In fact, his family traced their lineage back to the city's founders, so they were around before the Roman Republic even started. Most families of that social status in ancient Rome had money, but Catilina had spent almost all of it trying to buy his way into a consulship, an influential position in the Roman Republic. 2 consuls were elected annually. Elections were expensive, so Catilina was rapidly running out of money. Cicero came from a very different background. He was the first of his family to go into politics, but he had connections and speaking talent. When the 2 competed for the consulship in 64 BCE, Cicero won the first consulship, and Gaius Antonius Hybrida won the second one. The 2 men ran against each other again in 63 BCE, but people knew Catilina's plan at this point, making him unpopular with the elite. Catilina's plans involved more than just annulling debts. He also had other conspiracy plans and an armed force outside Rome. Cicero called on the Senate to banish Catilina and give Cicero emergency power to protect the Roman Republic. Catilina was forced to leave the city, where he eventually met the Roman legion with his armed forces and died fighting heroically. Cicero quickly exposed the conspirators still in the city. He had them arrested and executed without a fair trial. However, Cicero's popularity did not support his decision for long. In 58 BCE, Cicero was banished from Rome and spent a year in Greece. Although he was able to come back, he never again achieved the influence he had before Catilina. Cicero helped save the Roman Republic, making him one of its great politicians, but he paid the price for the power he had to wield. Number 2. Lucius Junius Brutus. Lucius Junius Brutus was supposedly one of the first consuls of the Roman Republic, although historians are still determining how much of his story is legend. He helped overthrow the Roman kings and start Rome towards its republic political structure. Before Rome was a republic, kings ruled the city. That might seem strange to us because later Romans despised kings. Even the emperors were careful never to associate with that title. This hatred stemmed from the evil kings at the end of the period. But the Romans also acknowledged the kings were the first builders of Rome. The city would have been very different without the monarchy, and even the ancient Romans recognized that. Historians have less information about this part of Roman history because much of it is steeped in mythology. It can be challenging to separate fact from fable. The last king of Rome was Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, also called Tarquin the Proud. Tarquin was a selfish tyrant who ruled by fear. He exploited the people, financially ruined anyone who opposed him, and ignored the Senate. At the time, the Senate was only an advisor to the king, so it did not have nearly the power it had during the Roman Republic. The immoral actions of Tarquin and his family eventually pushed the Roman people to revolution. The final straw came from one of Tarquin's sons, Sextus Tarquinius. He raped a young woman named Lucretia, and afterward she stabbed herself in the heart. The violence and horror of the event sparked a revolution in Rome. One of its leaders was Lucius Junius Brutus, who who supposedly drew the knife out of Lucretia. He helped overthrow the monarchy in 510 BCE and founded the Roman Republic. Roman historians cite Lucius Junius Brutus as one of the first two consuls. The other one was the late Lucretia's husband, Collatinus. Although they were named the first consuls by later Roman writers, modern historians are undecided if the two men were actually consuls. The position appears to have developed over time, like much of the rest of the Roman political system and public identity, so it is unlikely that Brutus and Collatinus were proper consuls. However, Brutus was still a great Roman politician, freeing the Romans from an oppressive monarchy and starting them toward the Roman Republic. Brutus's descendants would continue to influence Roman politics centuries later when the more famous Brutus stabbed Julius Caesar in the Senate, sparking a revolution much like his ancestor had done centuries before. Number 3. Marcus Porcius Cato. Marcus Porcius Cato is most famous for urging Rome into the Third Punic War. The first two Punic Wars have been fought between Rome and Carthage, which both started the conflict as influential Mediterranean powers. The two forces began their rivalry in Sicily because a group of Italian mercenaries attacked the city of Messina. In a panic, the town asked both Rome and Carthage for help, and they both came and ended up fighting each other. This started the First Punic War, where the Romans learned how to build and command a naval force. They had never done this before, but after a few debacles, they finally managed to win the war. They gained several new provinces in the Mediterranean and a growing sense of power. This power fell under question during the Second Punic War, when Hannibal, a Carthaginian general, refused to surrender to Rome after attacking Saguntum, a town in Spain. While the Romans planned to attack Hannibal in Spain, the general invaded Italy by leading his army over the Alps, something the Romans had not anticipated. He then won a series of battles that left the Romans scrambling for generals and new military tactics. Hannibal did not have the power to attack the city of Rome, and Rome eventually decided to attack Carthage to make Hannibal leave Italy. Hannibal had to return to his home city, but even his work there was not enough to save Carthage from defeat. Rome managed to win the Second Punic War because they were able to endure losses longer than Carthage. Rome continued to expand, taking territory in Spain and limiting the powers of Carthage. By the Third Punic War, Carthage was a shell of its former self. They had lost the right to any military activity at the end of the Second Punic War and were harassed by Numidia. Carthage appealed to Rome for help, but Rome declined any assistance. In 151 BCE, Carthage created an army and fought Numidia. Historians today tend to view this as self-defense, but Rome refused to view it that way. Marcus Porcius Cato was instrumental in fueling the Third Punic War. He led the Roman embassy, which investigated Carthage's military action, and when he returned, Cato argued that Rome must obliterate Carthage. He became famous for ending every speech in the Senate with "Carthage must be destroyed." Cato's actions pushed the Romans into the Third Punic War in 149 BCE, where they razed Carthage, enslaving the surviving people, and made North Africa part of the Roman Republic. Cato was influential in destroying one of Rome's enemies, making him one of their greatest politicians. Number 4. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. The Gracchi brothers were remembered more as Roman martyrs today than for any policies they successfully implemented. They were both interested in helping the poor citizens of the Roman Republic, and much of this help centered around land redistribution, which the wealthy members of the government were not interested in pursuing. Although the Gracchi brothers came from a wealthy aristocratic family, they wanted to make Rome better for everyone, not just the elite. Tiberius Gracchus was the older brother. He was elected tribune of the plebes and recommended that Rome give all abandoned land in Italy to unemployed farmers. In theory, it was a great idea because it would reduce social tension. However, the leaders of the Senate did not want to share this land with the poor. Many of them had taken public land for their farms and used it to their advantage. Sharing the public land would decrease the amount of land the wealthy had, so they were completely against his plan. In 133 BCE, Tiberius tried to force property redistribution in Pergamum, a new Roman province in Asia, and the elite killed him for his efforts. Gaius Gracchus was elected tribune in 123 BCE, and he took up his brother's cause and pushed for land redistribution again. Gaius even took the reforms a step further and presented ideas to bring prosperity to everyone in the Roman Republic, regardless of social class. Once again, the Senate was utterly against these social changes because it would impact their wealth. They were so determined to stop Gaius Gracchus that they ordered Gaius's death, and he was forced to commit suicide. With the end of the Gracchi brothers, the Roman Republic began a century of social strife and chaos. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus may not have successfully repaired Roman society, but they are still remembered today as great politicians because they could look outside their place in society. They saw what others needed and attempted to steer the government toward helping the people it governed. Their failure displayed the corruption of the Roman Republic's politics, which led to its fall and the rise of the Roman Empire. Number 5. Julius Caesar. Many people associate Julius Caesar with his great military exploits, but he was also a great politician who propelled Rome into the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar was part of the first triumvirate and ruled with Gaius Pompeius and Marcus Licinius Crassus. All three of them were generals, and they joined together to get what they wanted. In Caesar's case, he wanted power and the consulship, and he was elected consul in 59 BCE. Caesar also spent several years away from Rome. He gained notoriety in Gaul by conquering it for the Roman Republic, which made him a Roman hero. However, the Senate became leery of Caesar's power. In 50 BCE, they ordered Pompey, the other surviving member of the first triumvirate, to force Caesar to give up his army. Caesar was an astute politician, and he knew he needed to act before he was killed by either the Romans or people in Gaul. So he marched his army across the Rubicon River and seized the city. The war between Caesar and Pompey was short, and Pompey fled to Greece. By 46 BCE, Caesar had defeated Pompey and all of his supporters, leaving him the only leader in Rome. The Senate appointed him dictator for 10 years. Julius Caesar planned to repair the damages and institute some reforms to help the Roman Republic reestablish order. Some of these reforms helped veterans, and some increased the number of Roman citizens in the Republic. He even reduced taxes in some of the provinces. While many people appreciated Caesar's work to restore Rome, the Senate resented him because he did not utilize the old republican system. In 44 BCE, he named himself dictator for life, and the senators began grumbling that he was acting like a king. While the Roman people were just happy for some stability, the Senate decided that Caesar had gotten too powerful. Even though he was a great politician, Caesar allowed his aspirations for power to go to his head. Several senators, including Brutus and Cassius, assassinated Julius Caesar in a Senate meeting on March 15, 44 BCE. They thought they would be hailed as saviors of Rome, but they quickly realized that the public was furious. The conspirators fled for their lives, and Mark Antony and Octavian took over, leading to the establishment of the Second Triumvirate and the rise of the Roman Empire. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about ancient Rome, check out our book, The Roman Republic, a captivating guide to the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, SBQR, and Roman politicians such as Julius Caesar and Cicero. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.